Hi, everybody. This is Christy, one of the interns with individual dual enrollment for dual enrollment. I first and foremost want to apologize for not being able to do the workshop on this day it was scheduled. We had a few events that were kind of conflicting with the workshop schedule. So I apologize for that. So I will just be doing this recording for everyone. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys for checking out these workshops. I really appreciate it. If there is anything that you guys are interested or that you guys want to um, kind of get more, that you would see as something that would be very beneficial for us to talk about or for us to kind of discuss that you want to see in these workshops, please feel free to let us know. You can do so by signing in. So if you sign in and you are a dual enrollment student, feel free in the comment section to write down what it is that you would like for us to discuss next. Okay? So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just go into what this month was supposed to be about. This was going to be about public speaking. So this is the workshop for speaking clearly and with confidence. These are effective public speaking tips. So one of the things I want to just put out real quick before we kind of go deep into it, public speaking is very important. And this is not only pertaining to uh, events that you guys may go to. So say, for example, you guys are running for the associated student body at your school and you are running for president, you are going to have to give a speech, right? You are going to be talking to someone. And what this workshop kind of aims to do is to kind of just give you some tips and tricks on how to speak effectively to whatever it is that you want to portray. So whether that is, debating someone uh, in a debate competition, you're presenting a project with your your peers, it's an oral presentation. Um, or, if you're doing if you're volunteering or if you're ever doing anything outside of school, but someone asks you to give, you know, um, say for example, a testimony and you are giving it to people within your community to say, for example, dual enrollment. Say we have an event where we ask a dual enrollment student to come in and talk about their experience, give their testimony as to um, their experience with dual enrollment. It's public speaking in a way. So with that being said, one of the first things that is really important about public speaking is knowing your audience. So kind of like what I'm doing right now, I may not technically be public speaking, but I am speaking to a specific group of students that this workshop is intended to be for. So by that example, I know my audience. So what does that mean? That means that you're understanding who they are, you're tailoring your message to match their needs and interests, and you're engaging with stories or examples that they can relate to. One of the things that can easily happen when you are talking to someone or when you're giving a presentation or you're giving a speech is sometimes you may lose the audience interest, which is, you know, it's okay. So that's definitely a fear that everyone has. I definitely have a fear of that. Um, I was very, very bad with oral presentations growing up, that I had a lot of anxiety and I would tend to use and like and a lot. I still technically do that because my mind is going at 100 miles per hour faster than what my mouth is saying. So when you are speaking to an audience, when you are talking to your audience, think about what it is that you're trying to portray your message to. Say for a really good example of that would be TED Talks. TED Talks are really good. TED Talks are a really good way of kind of looking at how a presenter is speaking to their audience, right? That some of them may have maybe talking about something scientific, they may be talking about something relevant, they may be just talking about something that they're very passionate about, but it's because they're very passionate about it, that is what gets people's attention because of maybe how they're moving, how they are using their words. It's just really important to understand who it is that you're talking to. So if it's a more solemn crowd, that they are there to just really listen, think about what tone you're using. Think about what words you're using. So that's just something to kind of think about. So we talked about the audience. Now, how are we going to basically prepare for that? So with every TED Talker, they always have a lot of preparation, right? So what you will need to do is that you would need to create a clear outline of key points that you are planning on talking about. Um, for example, let's just say we're talking about, let's do science because science is very easy to kind of just have key points for, right? Say you were discussing your experiments on, I guess, let's just say you did a science experiment on how fast someone runs. Um, I, you know what? Here, we'll do this. Um, let's pretend that I'm doing a presentation on a science experiment that I actually did back in high school, where we tested to see if someone runs faster when they have an energy drink or if they drink water. Very, very interesting attention grabber, running, energy drinks. Um, my key points of that whole thing would be that I am going to state the question, the hypothesis. I am going to talk about every detail of what it is that I found, right? So after, I've done my research, um, I've done my outline, I've pointed out key specific details. For example, people like for example, students tend the test subjects that I had tend to run faster when they drink water than when they drink energy drinks. However, Gatorade is also um a factor into that. Just a lot of key points, right? So I know exactly what it is I'm going to be talking about. The next step would then to just rehearse your piece multiple times to build confidence. So, like I mentioned with the audience portion, uh, if you have confidence in what you are talking about, it shows people that you know what you're talking about. It shows that you are very passionate and it will have people listen to you more. And though you will retain your audience's attention. So it's really important that you rehearse multiple times. I know that especially with group projects, what me and my group mates did, because we did a lot of oral presentations. Um, my group mates and I would rehearse throughout the week. And then even 5 minutes before class, or even 10 minutes before class would start, we would actually go ahead and practice together. And again, even though we were doing it through Zoom, sometimes it could still be a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if there happens to be a time limit, right? Sometimes some professors and some teachers will give you a time limit, and depending on your teacher or professor, they may dock you points on it. So it's really important that you are constantly rehearsing your presentations or your speeches or whatever it is that you're talking about, and getting to those key points so you don't get docked points if you have a professor or teacher that happens to dock you points for that. Um, other than that, um, along with rehearsing your pieces or your speeches or your presentations, um, when you're practicing, uh, check the flow and the timing. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes you may be put on a time limit. So, you know, kind of make sure that you're staying within the time. You're staying within the time frame. Make sure that you are hitting all the points um within a reasonable amount of time. You're not going too fast, you're not going too slow, you're not reading off of your screen, which I will get into next or further down the line. If you guys didn't know, again, I'll be referencing TED Talks a lot with this workshop. TED Talkers actually have a timer in front of them, right? So if you guys have ever seen TED Talks, I really recommend that you guys do, uh, TED Talkers are put on a small platform, a small circle platform with a projection in the back, and in front of them, there's a little box that has their timer. So sometimes they may have 15 minutes to talk. Sometimes they may have 20 minutes to talk. Sometimes some presenters have 5 minutes to talk. Uh, it really just depends on what the topic is and how well they space everything. So kind of keep that in mind. So again, just to go over this whole section again, create a clear outline with key points. Make sure you have done everything that you needed do to do research wise, and have marked everything that you want to talk about that is important to you and what you feel is important to you. Um, Especially if you guys are doing presentations, definitely look at your rubrics and your syllabuses, wherever it is that your professors are giving you. Okay. After you've created that clear outline, um, rehearse your piece, rehearse your speech, rehearse your orientation, your presentation, I mean. Rehearse it multiple times to build your own confidence, and then to also make sure that you know the information at the back of your hand. And lastly, make sure that you're practicing out loud and you're doing it in a within the time frame that is set, and that it's flowing and it's transitioning perfectly all together. All right. So one of the things that you could definitely do, and I have done this multiple times, especially with my group of friends. Um, Group of friends are definitely, I would definitely say is one of like the best people that I could definitely count on. And I'll give my reasons why. But when you guys are practicing your speeches or your presentations, um, you know, it's one thing to practice to yourself in the mirror. It's another thing to practice in front of groups of people. All right. So I am not sure if this is done in any of the communications classes, but um, one of the things that you can definitely start with is a small audience. You're not going straight into your class and feeling kind of choked up because you've only been practicing to yourself. Try to practice with small audiences. So one of the first things that you could definitely do to kind of like practice your presentation or your speech or public speaking in general is to begin with a group of friends, family, or small groups. I definitely say friends because, for one thing, your friends are always going to laugh. They'll try to do whatever it is to kind of trip you up. And sometimes, maybe they might be in the same class as you, right? This goes for high school and this also goes for dual enrollment. It really goes for any kind of class that you are taking. Um, Sometimes that is a good thing to kind of keep in mind. Um, I believe that if you are working with a small audience and it happens to be a group of friends, it's gonna help you adapt and learn how to handle situations that may be like that. Because, sometimes there are things that happen in a classroom or in a setting where, um, say, for example, in a speech, a baby starts crying, someone's talking on their phone, um, your friends might be making a small inside joke, just trying to trip you up. Guess what? It's a learning process that will help you learn how to adapt when you're speaking with larger audiences. So it kind of it all again, it also builds on your confidence. So like right here, using this experience kind of helps with your confidence. If you get your friends or your family or even like a small random group really enamored with what it is that you're talking about, you start to feel good about yourself. That you can tend to be a lot more passionate when you're speaking. Um, you become more concise, and especially if there is a point where you are going to be asked questions. So sometimes professors and teachers will ask questions um, about your knowledge and what it is that you've learned, especially throughout the process. For example, one of my classes I've done, um, it was a legal and ethics class, and my presentation was a 5-minute presentation on underserved student populations because I'm in the school counseling program. So I decided to go with second generation Filip or just in general Filipino American students. I'm very confident in the subject because I am indeed Filipino American. I am very passionate about it because there are a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. Um, why I considered and I gave my opinion as to why I believe that they were um, an underserved population. And three, because I practiced it enough and I knew exactly what it is I wanted to talk about, I was able to get through the presentation um, within the 5-minute range. So Um, I bring this up because after that, my professor and my peers then asked me questions after that, and I was able to answer them very easily. I did get a question about ethnic studies, and I was able to bring up my experience with a friend that I have that is actually teaching ethnic studies up in San Francisco. And I talked about the ethnic studies class that is starting to become a course in high schools. So I had a lot of things to definitely talk about. And I was able to kind of like really think about it on the spot because I knew my research, I knew my topic, I had an idea of what it is that was going to be asked um, based off of what my audience was based off of what my audience and how my audience was reacting to me. So, um, going along with that, when you start building up your confidence a little bit more, when you're practicing, so you're practicing from your friends and your family or a small group, and you start to gain more confidence the more that you practice with them, um, you can easily progress into talking with larger audiences. Hence, your classroom or um, the auditorium hall, wherever it is that you would consider to be the basically like the final audience. That is what you are basically leading up to. So it's not a problem to start small and to kind of like lead up to the big thing. So we'll go on to the next thing. So, one of the important things is when you are, again, looking at your audience, and this is something that you should, and I mentioned this a little bit before when you are with when your friends or family are the ones that you are practicing with, um, focus on people's body language. See if people are maintaining eye contact with you, or if you're looking at people. I know that sometimes it could be really scary to just look at someone. I've done that many times and have completely blanked out on what it is I was going to say. But sometimes, and this is a trick that I learned, if you are in a classroom or a big hall, um, I'm not going to tell you to, do the imagine everyone in their underwear kind of thing. I know that that's definitely one that is something that's brought up a lot in movies. Um, who knows if it works for you, then it works for you. For me, that does not work. Um, what I learned to do is that if I have trouble maintaining eye contact with someone, I would try to focus on wherever it is that my professor or my teacher is looking. Um, If they tell you, if a professor or teacher tells you not to just look at them, but they need to see how you're interacting with your whole audience, um, look above their heads. If you don't want to look directly at them, especially if a lot of your classmates are sitting down, look above their heads unless they are asking you a question. Then you would need to maintain eye contact with them. It's very important so the audience member knows that you are acknowledging them and that you are specifically answering them. So eye contact is a very important thing. Is an important aspect of body language that you need to pay attention to when you're doing any form of speaking. Um, Using natural gestures to emphasize your point. So I am a very animated person. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but I like to use my hands a lot when I talk. That can be considered very distracting if you're not using it in certain points. So if you are gesturing to your presentation and you are moving your hand over to kind of like go through points, if you are emphasizing words and you're kind of like slapping your hand on you're slapping the back of your hand on the other side of your palm kind of thing to emphasize certain points, those are like very natural gestures and they should come to you. You shouldn't try to force them on. Um, when it comes to someone that is very animated, and they like to talk with their hands a lot, and it can be very, very distracting. I am both a victim and the culprit of doing such a thing. Sometimes what I like to do is that if I am given a podium and our professor or teacher allows you to use the podium. I like to put my hands on there and I like to just kind of like try to keep everything to a minimum. What also that kind of means is that if you start to feel a little jittery, kind of move around the classroom. Um, Appropriately, you know? If you are, that's also kind of like a way to show the audience that you are interacting with them, that you are going across the room, you are scanning and you're looking over to make sure that, you know, people are listening to you, that they are at least trying to be respectful and paying attention to what it is that you're talking about. So moving across the room sometimes can really help with jitteriness if you tend to use your hands a lot. There's nothing, I will say that there's nothing wrong with using hands. It's just how many, how many times you kind of use your hands or how often um, you talk with your hands. Okay. And then last but not least, there is standing confidently with an open posture. So when you see TED Talkers, they are always constantly standing, they're always constantly walking. Um, Say for example, you're not constantly walking. You're at a podium. Um, if you're at a podium or you are standing up, you need to stand up straight, not hunched over, because sometimes that can honestly show that you are lacking confidence, and the audience may see that, and they may lose their interest. So it can be like a whole domino effect thing. But don't let that um don't let that idea inhibit you from, giving your speech. Like sometimes if it's hard to stand straight, again, if you have a podium, use a podium. Um, if you are presenting something, use the whiteboard, lean against it and kind of just like stand up tall, straight with your head up high. So, you know, it shows that you are confident and um that you know what you're talking about and that you are very passionate about what it is that you're talking about. So, body language, again, just overall is really important to do. Um, and it's really important to take note of, not only for yourself, but also with other people in your audience. Okay. So, another thing, controlling your voice. So, I'll go through all three of these really quickly. One of the things that you need to know is when it comes to controlling your voice is speaking clearly and at a steady pace, using the right tone for your message, and pausing to emphasize key ideas so it can give your audience time to absorb. So If you look at TED Talks, I am bringing up TED Talks again because they give the best example of what that looks like. Um, like I mentioned before, with speaking clearly and keeping a steady, like with keeping a steady pace, sometimes my mind tends to go at 100 miles per hour, and it is thinking a lot of thoughts and words that I want to say a lot faster than my mouth can actually say them. So that's one of the important things that you would need to consider if you are a fast talker or you're a slow talker, or if you use like a lot like me. It's really important that you practice so your audience can hear you clearly and that you are talking at a pace that doesn't make them go, wait, what? What did they say? What did she say? What did he say? That's one of the important things to kind of practice when you are preparing for your speech or your presentation. Using the right tone for your message is also very important. So if you're very passionate about something, show enthusiasm in your voice. If you're talking about something serious, consider how you are talking. Use a low tone and enunciate what it is that you are saying so it gets the message across. Um, if you are debating something, use your voice, use it loud, use it clear in a respectful way. Use it in a way that will get your point across that, that might stump your opponent. Uh, it goes all the way back to creating that outline into the key points of your presentation or whatever it is that you are going to be talking about. Setting the right tone will not only help you keep the flow of what it is that you're going to be talking about in your presentation or um, in your speech or even in a debate. Setting the right tone will grab people's attention as well. And then also, lastly, again, pausing to emphasize key ideas. So TED Talkers use this a lot. When they get to a key point, one of the things that they do is that they will repeat the key point. They'll repeat it at least 2 or 3 times. And one of the things that they do is that they kind of count like maybe 5 seconds in their head before they continue on. Um, if it is a presentation where you are discussing, for example, why a certain habitat, correct? Um, you're talking about a natural habitat to your classmates in your science class, science biology class, and you get to a key point. You want to maybe repeat it a few times. And after that, just give yourself a little pause. And that pause is not only for your audience to take in what it is that you had just told them. It is also giving you time to kind of regroup yourself for the next thing that you'll be talking about, the next slide, what the other section that you are, or the other key point that it is that you're going to be transitioning to. So think about it as just like, a scale where it is that you're helping yourself, you are also giving the audience time to also be helped as well. All right, so controlling your voice. It's really important when you're public speaking because, you're speaking. So be sure to speak clearly at a steady pace, um, use the right tone for your message, and then emphasize key ideas to your audience so they can fully absorb it. So visual aids for our friends and our students that are doing presentations and you use visual aids, I will definitely say this. It is something that you should definitely talk to your professor or your teacher about on what it is that is considered too much or too little. Okay, so visual aids in general are slides, props, or charts that can make your presentation more engaging. Keeping visuals is a simple and easy way to understand things, and using them to support is the main point of visual aids. It's not used to distract from the message that you're given. So the reason why I mention using visual aids very sparingly and having to discuss that with your professor or teacher is because sometimes some professors may not want you to use may or may not want you to use a visual aid. Um, Sometimes professors may want you to just make sure all your words are there. Sometimes some professors don't want you to put any words on there. Uh, you know, if you are going to be using charts and if you're going to be using pie charts, graphs, anything that is considered data, make sure that if you're using it, you have at least some sort of description at the bottom that can kind of help you um, discuss the importance of the graph or the charts, you know? Um, in a way, visual aids are very appealing to the eye. Um, I know that especially for me, I'm a visual learner. I learn a lot easier when I see something. Um, Sometimes speaking or writing it out just doesn't help me. Having to see it actually really does. Sometimes the visual aids can be distracting. So when you guys are using Canva or if you guys are using Google Slides, uh, don't be afraid to be creative, but be aware of how you are able to mesh your creativity with your data or with your information. Um, Another cool thing about visual aids, though, is that if you lose your train of thought or you are asked a question in the middle of your presentation, as a way to kind of go back to your talking point, you can, you know, look at your screen, look at your um look at your presentation and kind of just go back to where it was that you were talking about. Again, visual aids are definitely a means of support. It isn't meant for distraction. So just be aware of like the colors that you use. Be aware of how big your fonts are. What emoji or what clip art are you using that may be grabbing someone else's attention a lot more? If you are just using pictures, which I have done a couple of times, especially with some of my presentations, make sure that you are able to explain it. And then especially um, if you are presenting and you just have visuals, make sure that you put in the notes for your professor if they are looking at your Google Slides or Canva. Make sure you put in notes um, to kind of remind them why you only had pictures and give a description about what it is that you were talking about. So visual aids are really fun. It's a fun way to kind of learn everything. I know you guys know that I love using Canva a lot, and I do love using all the cool, neat stuff that they have on here. But I still try to keep in mind that my point is still getting across. So visual aids, use sparingly. Always double check with your professor or your teacher if you are unsure. Alrighty. So public speaking, I mentioned before, speaking in general in front of people can be very nerve-wracking for people. Some people are naturally good at talking in front of people, some not so much. Me, for example, I am very, very bad um, when it comes to talking in front of people, even if it's through Zoom. My hands tend to get a little shaky. I worry a lot about time, but one of the things to do is, as a presenter, you want to stay calm and you want to be confident. Those are very important. Those are two important things, staying calm and being confident. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are not staying calm and you are not feeling very confident, um, take deep breaths. Take deep breaths before you get on. before you're called up, and then take deep breaths after you're done. Especially if there's like certain points where you have some pauses where your audience is absorbing information that you have just told them. Take that time to just take a deep breath and, you know, count to three, count to five, right? So, really important deep breathing exercises is, breathing through the nose, holding it in, and then exhaling through your mouth. So, um, that is definitely just one thing that you can try to do. One of the things that I definitely like to do is that I like to sometimes I like to draw on the podium with my finger. I Yeah, I know you guys can't see it, but if you draw like a triangle, if you draw like an imaginary triangle, you're not drawing an actual triangle. If you're drawing an imaginary triangle with your finger, sometimes that can also really help. So there's a lot of mental health um, exercises that you can do. And if there's something that you guys probably do that already that actually really helps you, or if there's something that you want to suggest, I would definitely love to hear what you guys have to say. Um, Another thing, and sometimes this is something that I am very much a culprit of as well. Make sure you're focusing on the message and not on perfection. I know that especially for me, when it comes to time, I sometimes will want to go through all of my slides within the 5 minutes that I have, and I will beat myself up and feel self-conscious about not getting through everything. The most important thing is that when you're presenting anything or you're talking about something, it's that you are relaying your message to your audience and making sure that they understand that this is your main point, this is why it's important. Um, Sometimes perfection um, can cause you to think about other things and it can kind of send you into a spinning hole and may make you lose your train of thought. So just make sure that you are focusing on the message. And then lastly, remind yourself that the audience is there to listen and learn. So again, making sure that your audience is getting the message, but making sure that, they're engaged, they're learning. Um, it's really good. There's really good signs that you are doing really well if they start asking questions, you know? If someone's really asking, if there's audience members are constantly asking questions, that means that they're engaged and that they are listening to what you're saying and they are curious to learn more about what it is that you have found. Uh, Teachers will definitely be part of that pool, will be definitely part of that pool as well. You know, if you engage your teacher, just know that's a really good grade. You are going to be getting a really good grade, especially if you're able to answer the questions that they have promptly and with confidence. So just keep all of this in mind when you're talking. Of course, it's going to always be nerve-wracking when you are presenting. So just keep these in mind when you're talking. So, one of the things I really want to emphasize is that when you guys are constantly improving your public speaking, or you're just improving, just the way you talk in front of a class, uh, you're getting a lot of benefits and you're proving a lot of things that are going to be very helpful along the way. So you're it's very beneficial that you are improving your self-confidence, self-confidence in what it is that you're talking about. Um, Effective communication, again, like if you have classmates or teachers that are actively asking you questions and you are able to answer them back. That's a form of effective communication. And then also too, it's like, if you're just talking to someone, you tend to listen a little bit better, which is, active listening. You are listening to what someone is saying, and because you're listening to what they're saying and you are able to understand what they're saying, you are able to respond in an effective way. and a relevant way, which is effective communication. Persuasion is a big benefit because if you are especially doing a debate or if you're running for an office in your student body, um, persuasion is something that is very beneficial and you will improve on that a lot because of how you use your tone of voice and how you carry yourself. Along with that is improved leadership skills. If you are put in a leadership skill, usually most of the time you are going to be public speaking. You are kind of like the face, you are the forefront of your group or your organization. So you're improving your leadership skills by improving your public speaking. And of course, with the outline and hitting specific key points that you believe are very important to make, that those are your critical thinking and organizational skills. So improving your public speaking does a lot of things. There's a lot of benefits to improving your public speaking. So just something to keep in mind. So I will conclude with this and just say, you know, public speaking is not a very easy thing to do. For some people it is, for some people it's not, and that's okay. Um, Knowing your audience and preparing well and practicing often is one of the best things that you can do when it comes to presenting or when it comes to just speaking in front of a large audience. Um, when you practice enough, it becomes secondhand and it becomes second nature to you, and you can definitely uh, get your message across and do the most for your audience and for yourself as well when you have prepared well and you've practiced often. Um, Using your body language and having proper voice control and appropriately using your visuals will enhance what is already kind of enhance what you already have set as like your outline. So that's just something to also keep in mind too. Remember body language, eye contact, how you're using your how you are using your hands, voice control, how are you talking to someone, visual effects, how are you explaining and using your pie charts, how are you explaining that, you know? Uh, Very important to keep those in mind. And last but not least, staying small, starting small, staying confident, and then enjoying the process because in general, I think everyone loves talking, especially when it's something that they're very confident about. So if you are deathly afraid of public speaking, know that I was there too, and um, I've grown to love it. In a way, I will definitely say that doing these student success workshops definitely helps a lot. Um, it helps me, and I really honestly hope that it helps you as well. So I just want to say thank you guys for joining. Again, I apologize for not being able to do this on the date of. Um, this will all be uploaded onto YouTube, and then it will also be uploaded on our ECI Canvas. So just keep an eye out for that. It's going to include the presentation as well as this recording. So just keep an eye out for that. If you guys have any questions or you guys have suggestions, feel free to contact us here at the earlycollege@lbcc.edu email. Feel free to also give us a call if you guys have anything that you guys need assistance with. If there's a suggestion of a workshop that you guys want to do next, feel free to give us a call. These are our office hours. And if you guys haven't done so already, please feel free to scan this QR code so you guys can follow us on Instagram, where we'll have all of our updates. All right. I hope this has helped you guys, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you, and bye-bye.